Okay, we're ready to go.
His volume is on.
It's me. It's me.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 1:30. Roll call, let everyone introduce themselves. Paul Lance, the mayor.
Melanie Bagby, Cloverdale City Council.
City Manager David Kelly.
Kevin Thompson, Assistant City Manager and Public Director.
Susie Holmes, Finance Director.
We'll note that Chief Ferguson is absent attending the Chiefs Conference.
Thank you very much. Public comments. Any person wishing to speak to the council subcommittee on any item not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Members of the public have the right to speak on any item on the agenda at the time the item comes up for consideration. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the subcommittee is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. 3 minutes are typically allotted to each speaker. Do we have anyone in the audience?
No hands were raised in the virtual audience, Mayor.
Thank you. Give it 1 second just in case, and I think most of them are presenters anyways, or employees, so. Communications, any communications?
No written communications other than what's in the agenda packet.
First one up is the approval of the minutes from March 6th.
Happy to move.
Now second, since it's here. Anyone, any issues? Okay, motion passes. Moving on to new business. A is discussion the California flavored tobacco ban.
Okay, Mayor, we have two guests joining us from the county. I'm going to promote them to panelists. All right, so we have Alyssa Hamilton and Shannon and Shannon as well. So just a quick background. Proposition 31 was approved by the voters, which implemented SB 793. This legislation restricted the sale of flavored tobacco products. The flavored tobacco ban that was approved by the voters is more restrictive than the city's ordinance, and most specifically in regards to menthol type products. But we were contacted by our county team, Impact Sonoma through the County Department of Health about enforcement, and also the fact that our municipal code is not connected with this voter enacted measure. So today is a presentation by the team at Department of Health Services. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Alyssa and Teresa, and feel free. I think you should be able to share screen if you want to walk Mayor Lance and Councilmember Bagby here to my right through your presentation.
Wonderful. Well, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Like I mentioned, my name is Alyssa, and I am one of the team members from Impact Sonoma. And then we have Therese, who is my lovely boss and very, very knowledgeable and been working in this field for a very long time. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Everything, the PowerPoint slides that I'm going to go over are the ones that you guys were previously sent as well. Okay. Are you guys able to see the slides? Thumbs up. Okay,
We see it
perfect.
perfectly.
Okay, perfect. So as previously mentioned, you know, the California flavored ban was passed, and that actually went into effect December 21st of 2022. And what that did was it banned most flavored tobacco products. So some of those tobacco products that were included in that ban were cigarettes, chewing tobacco, snuff, little cigar, cigarillos, e-cigarettes, roll your own tobacco, and flavor enhancers. So what this ban also did was it included menthol cigarettes. So it banned menthol cigarettes for, like, in your guys' instance, that's one of the exempted tobacco products in your current code. So this ban went ahead and included menthol and banned that. It also banned tobacco flavor enhancers. So an example of what that is there is a product out on the market called Camel Crush Oasis. And there's other similar products, but this product itself has a capsule component built into the cigarette. And when you crush that component, it releases a flavor enhancer into the cigarette, which would then change it into a flavored product. So it's just an example of what a flavor enhancer might look like. However, the state ban did exempt a few products, and some of those products are hookah, shisha, loose leaf pipe tobacco, and premium cigars. There is a few rules around the premium cigars that if they're going to be sold as a flavored product, they have to be greater $12 or more, and they have to be physically rolled on site. And then, so this ban, it extends to retail stores and sales. It does not have any jurisdiction over online sales. Such something important to know. And then the enforcement. So while this is a state policy, the enforcement is left up to local jurisdictions, and there is no state funding to pay for this enforcement. So it can make the enforcement a little bit challenging to come up with some creative alternatives. But since it is not currently being enforced by the state, it is really important that local jurisdictions do identify the enforcement agency in order to, enforce this ban. Currently, the penalty for violations for this ban are $250 per violation, and they are a criminal infraction. So I'll touch on this a little bit later, but again, why it's important for local jurisdictions to identify an enforcement body, because the current penalty, being a criminal infraction, is so severe. So in addition, it is left up to local jurisdictions to decide what is deemed a flavored product. And while on the surface, this might seem very clear, there is actually quite a few ambiguous products since the passing of this law that have come onto market from tobacco industry. And so it can make it very challenging for retailers, enforcement bodies alike to figure out whether these products are flavored or not. And then I'll explain a little bit more on that, but Impact Sonoma has taken a lot of effort into creating a process on how to identify these products and determine if they truly are flavored or not. So a little bit more in the ambiguous and confusing products. So a lot of the ones that we're seeing right now are going to be typical cigarettes, but their packaging says non-menthol. Their packaging is identical to what their menthol cigarettes looked before the ban. So a lot of retailers, in order to do their due diligence and be compliant with the law, they will start by looking at the packaging. If the packaging says non-menthol, then they are under the understanding or idea that this product is non-flavored. However, it is not encouraged to stop with just the packaging, because we know that the tobacco industry is very creative, and they want to push these markets out, particularly in California. So along with that, we also can't just rely on ingredients that are listed on these products. What we've been seeing is a lot of ingredients, in addition to websites that promote these products, have been redacting these types of line items on there. So again, making the enforcement a little bit challenging when you just look at the product at face value. So how is flavor kind of determined? So based on the state law, flavor is referring to a characterizing flavor of a product, one that can be tasted, smelt, or has a sensation that an average person, a consumer, can identify from a product. That is how flavor is determined. And so like I said on the previous slide, Impact Sonoma, we are an enforcement agency for some of the jurisdictions in the county, and we have been working on a protocol to help better identify these flavors and what retailers are kind of getting caught up with that are on the market. So what does Cloverdale have currently with tobacco code? So currently the code, it does not permit the sale of tobacco products that contain an artificial flavor or other than an artificial or natural flavor, but it does allow for the sale of menthol, tobacco or cigarettes. There is a current minimum pack size for cigars. What I want to point out in this particular line item of the code is while there is a pack size, there is no definition of what a cigar is. And so it makes this part of the code going to be challenging to enforce when there isn't a clear understanding of what is encompassed and defined as a cigar. And then in addition, pharmacies are currently not allowed to sell tobacco products. Okay, so what does Sonoma County as a whole, what policies are currently in place for Sonoma County? So there are 10 jurisdictions within the county, 4 of which currently do not have a TRL. The 6 that do have a TRL, they're different strengths or different the TRL varies. But for the most part, they are all going to include this flavor component and give concrete definitions of what these products are. But when you guys can click on these links here in blue, and it'll actually take you to that jurisdiction's TRL ordinance if you'd like to reference, for things to think about. In this side of the column, this is going to be the compliance agencies that are enforcing the current state policy and local policies for that area. And so you can see that there is a lot of variety, but Impact Sonoma, we do the compliance visits for Windsor, Petaluma, and the unincorporated of Sonoma County. So back in 2021, Impact Sonoma conducted a few observational visits to some of the Cloverdale retailers. And so it was specifically 5. So what we saw during that observational visit is that the majority of the 5 retailers were selling flavored tobacco products that would be prohibited based on the code as it stood at that time. Since then, just last month, I went out and did a few more observational visits in Cloverdale to see, where we were, where have retailers come since the passing of SB 793. And I looked at 7 retailers, or not 7, 12. Of those 12 retailers, nearly all of them were still selling the same flavored tobacco products that you see listed here. So what are some, enforcement options for the state law in Cloverdale? Well, one, you could, the local police department could enforce the law. If there's a code enforcement division within Cloverdale, they could also enforce the law, or you could entertain other possibilities. Now, why I mentioned on the first page why this is so important is because currently the state law is a criminal infraction. So in order for that criminal infraction to be changed to a civil infraction, the local jurisdiction has to adopt their own flavor policy. So that would be encouraged. We encourage jurisdictions to mirror that of the state policy and to close the loopholes on the products that are exempt from the state ban, so that you can remove that level of severity from the retailers from having the criminal infraction and having a civil infraction instead if they do present a violation in their retail location. So if a TRL is considered, you could possibly contract out your administrative duties and compliance activities to Impact Sonoma. So like I said, that's what we do for 3 other jurisdictions, Windsor, Petaluma, and unincorporated. So what does that mean? Retailers would pay an annual licensing fee which is approximately $525 per retailer. And what the retailers would get out of that is they get 1 compliance visit a year that Impact Sonoma would conduct, and follow-up visits in person, over the phone, email communication, any kind of technical assistance that you guys as well as the retailer might need into understanding on how to be compliant with these products. But we would also be collaborating with city contacts in order to help determine violations. So we, as the compliance activity part, we provide suggestions and recommendations on what the violation decisions could be for that retailer, but ultimately is left up to that jurisdiction to issue the violation and make the final say on what that is going to be. And then if a retailer decides to make an appeal for any violation, that would be the responsibility of the city to handle that appeal. And then the city would defer to Impact Sonoma in regards to what products are determined to be flavored products and would be requested to be removed from retailer shelves. So what are the next steps for Cloverdale? 1, identify an enforcement agency so that you can enforce the state law. And decide whether you're going to update your current code and remove the exemptions, like the sale of menthol cigarettes, and in addition to the state tobacco products that are exempt. And then close the loop on your tobacco product definitions and enhance the definition around flavors. And then would be follow up with retailers that have violations in store based on local and state ordinances. And then finally transition your municipal code into a TRL. And you could, like I said, you could look at TRLs that are currently within the county to use to mirror or align yours with them. So that is the last slide that I have. I know that was a lot of information, but I would like to open up the floor and answer any questions that you guys might have that have come up, or any clarity that you need.
Is there any repercussions as a jurisdiction if we don't enforce the state law?
No, I mean, you might have citizens that get perturbed at that, but no, there's no repercussions. I know that the state was asking us who the enforcement agency was for all our jurisdictions, and they didn't expect that we would go out and know all that, but we're asking, and so we could tell them. But there's no obligation to enforce that. I think the only pressure you would get would be from your citizenry.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Alyssa, when you talk about per violation, I know with different things, per violation can mean per item, per brand. Do you have any ideas or any history of what other people are considering per violation?
So per violation is per item. So if a retailer has 10 flavored products, it's $250 per product.
But that's totally at the enforcing agency's discretion. They may say, yeah, there were 10 products, but we're just going to say this is one violation. So I don't know that I haven't heard yet of an instance where this is actually, there's been a citation issued. Probably there has, but it hasn't been around for very long. So I think most people are in the education state. And also a lot, often this is falling to police or a code enforcement who don't really have any or a lot of experience with enforcing tobacco laws. And in fact, a lot of police agencies in the past have wanted no part of enforcing tobacco laws. But because of how they set this up as a criminal infraction, there's not a lot of leeway with who can do that. Health departments can't enforce that criminal aspect. So unless it's part of a TRL, tobacco retail license, in a local jurisdiction, that makes it a lot easier for somebody else besides police to then be issuing an administrative citation of some sort.
And Teresa, Alyssa, could you share with us a little bit more information about tobacco retail license or TRL? I see from the chart you showed a number of cities have went that route. Maybe just walk us through that process. What does that look like on a local level if our subcommittee recommends that we go that route as an option? What would that look like?
Yeah. I mean, we provide as the local lead agency, we're funded to support jurisdictions in passing those policies. So what that looks like is it's a policy, so ordinance, first and second read. We have a lot of we have boilerplate language. Obviously, every instance where we've worked with everybody, every jurisdiction who's passed one of these policies over the years. I think the first one was in 2015, and all the way till just about a year or so ago, Windsor updated their policy. So we can be as supportive as you would like. We also have Public Health Law Center that can help. We've definitely bridged conversations between city attorneys and that outfit that is, they are attorneys themselves. Of course, they're not giving legal advice. They always, but there's often legal questions. I think we've been through it so much, we're pretty up on those, but we have policy language and, just understanding, because the policies can end up being pretty complex. There's a lot of provisions in there, that are possibles to, for your council to consider, such as minimum price, minimum pack, density restrictions,
Transferability.
Yeah, they get complicated. So we're happy to provide any technical assistance. There's also the Tobacco Coalition, and of course that's a freestanding community coalition, and this is their agenda, right, is to pass tobacco retail license laws. And so they're supportive and well-versed in all this too. And they really, get out and talk to the community. Retailers, they don't like to pay the fee, but they also like a level playing field. So right now, several of the jurisdictions have a $10 minimum price, and there's, other restrictions. And, if as in Cloverdale, if you butt up against you're basically surrounded by unincorporated. So there's cities like Petaluma where their borders right up against unincorporated. So the laws are different. And so retailers in the city are saying, hey, this isn't fair. That guy across the street can sell it for this, and I have to sell it for this. So really, their interest is in, like I said, a level playing field, having laws that are similar everywhere so that they're not losing customers to somebody that happens to be down the street in another jurisdiction. Does that help answer? I probably gave you more information than you were asked for.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can add that, TRLs are kind of the way the majority of the state is moving into. At present, almost, I think it's like 221 jurisdictions out of the 500 in California have adopted the TRL. So it's definitely something that more and more people are coming on board with. So.
Well, thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Teresa.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you both. We appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah. So
I think it's really just at this point for discussion. If based on the presentation, we know that our community code is out of date with the current state law. Do we want to engage in the process of updating the code, and whether there's interest in doing so? Do we look at transitioning to a TRL and working with Sonoma County? Obviously, our other alternative would be to continue to utilize the police department for enforcement, and you know, the process we've done previously was more, kind of just that direct outreach, a letter, follow up with the site visit. And make sure that they're aware of state law and require them to align. It can also, if we update the code, it could be a matter of code enforcement as well. So that's kind of three vehicles that are options for us to enforce the code if we update it to reflect consistency with state law. So whether you want more information, more review of this, whether we want to bring it to council and workshop it a little bit more. It's really your direction.
My idea would personally be to have a chief work with the county or Alyssa and Teresa and get said something, but no, I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with the chief, if he, well, since he's not here, we can volunteer.
Absolutely.
And a little bit more about the enforcement portion of it, because it may be appropriate for us since we have a code enforcement officer in place. I mean, I think that's important for us to be consistent with the region, so that
Yes.
the retailers aren't getting mixed messages. It's just, I think we've got to go, I'd like to see us go the route of the TRL. And then the question would be the best body for enforcement for us, and the chief may recommend, he may, you know, the chief and the code enforcement may say, you know, this would be great to be served by the county of Sonoma. Or we may say, hey, or the compliance officer may say, hey, this is something I'm doing in my other clients, and this is, I'm happy to do it. So I need a little more information just from in-house as to what the best route would be for us, but I think we definitely need to be up to date. We've had plenty of folks come before the council and give testimony about their concern about tobacco products. I think that information is out there, pretty prevalent, that it's a very serious public health issue. And let's be progressive and move forward with and stay in compliance with the state regulations. So I just think, just the question for us is the best way to enforce it.
That's why I was thinking chew, because
Yeah.
of all the other marijuana products that needs to go linked to this. We've not done the past.
Spearheading some more stuff for us, so it's like, if he's not here, as long as it's up to his boss, if you don't mind volunteering.
And Teresa and Alyssa, just say, the chief's attending a conference today, so he intended to be here, but Chair, I see Teresa has her.
Yeah, please.
Teresa has her.
Yeah, I didn't know if it's appropriate, if it's just, you know, I just want to say that, you know, we're not pushing us to do this either. It's, you know, I think in the long run, we lose money doing this. So it's more just a convenience. We definitely work with jurisdictions that said there's no way we could do this in-house. We have no interest in doing this in-house. We're already doing it. So we said, okay, yeah, we could do that. So, you know, Sebastopol is a good example. We worked really closely with them passing their ordinance, and they have it in-house, and that works great for them. We were able to provide them TA. We had at the time somebody in Alyssa's position that went out with their law enforcement folks and did visit so that they could see how Marco did them and talk about the products, because it's, you know, the detail of it is not always in the wheelhouse of somebody who's not used to all these products. So we are happy, whatever way you guys want to go with it, we are available for technical support. So just to let you, we don't have a preference or oh, you're doing it that way. No, you should do it this way. So yeah, just want to throw that out there.
Thank you, Teresa. We also have Pam. We're gonna
go ahead.
promote you. Maybe. Think slowly.
Oh, there it is.
Hi, Pam, can you hear us?
Hello, I can.
Hello.
I've been elevated, you know, it's like, oh, that's kind of, you know, that's special. Yeah, I'm Pam Granger. I'm actually the chair of Tobacco Free Sonoma County Community Coalition. I think the name of the coalition is longer than the number of members. No, just kidding. But the reason we're around is to try and reduce the harmful effects of tobacco use on our community. And of course, tobacco use takes everything from combustibles to electronics and chew, et cetera. And so I just wanted to say that there's no one way. I mean, our focus initially is to keep kids from starting to use tobacco products. Since if we keep them from starting, then we don't have to deal with a secondhand smoke and cessation, et cetera, down the line. But we certainly don't turn our backs on anybody who is currently using, if we can support them in some way to a better chance of health. That's what we'd like to do. What we found is access and availability make a big difference on whether youth use. That's one thing. Price makes a difference on whether they start in the first place. And flavors, you know, we're thrilled that after years of effort that the state, you know, like 2/3 of citizen voters in the state voted to pass Prop 31, the flavored tobacco ban. So those are two: price and availability. So the number of merchants and the product mix are real important on keeping or helping to hold down youth tobacco use. But consistency, when we look to policies, as you know, are only as good as their capacity for enforcement. I mean, you look at things like seatbelt laws, they're finally the norm. If I sit down in a movie theater, I automatically reach to buckle myself in. I mean, it's just kind of a sensation. But so to the extent that we can get uniform policies in our county, we have a better chance of giving the protections that we're after. And so, yes, Teresa hinted, there's several aspects to the most comprehensive tobacco retail license that will go that way. And it's no secret that the state of California would like to eventually see the end of the sale of tobacco products of all kinds by 2035. I mean, so we're not dancing around it. If we could figure out a way to pull the plug tomorrow, we would do that. But it's about public health. There's no other industry that gets to sell products that provide disease and death, you know, with impunity. And so anything we can do to support you in that journey, we're thrilled that this is something that you wanted to explore more. And we've got the enthusiasm to support you on that. We just need your go ahead. So thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you, Pam.
So Mayor, Councilmember, I hear direction to refer this back to the chief and chief coordinate with our Impact Sonoma team and Department of Health on bringing back amendments to the code to memorialize the changes and be consistent with state law. And as part of that, we also coordinate on the appropriate enforcement mechanism.
Sir.
That's great.
Okay. I just want to say thank you, Alyssa and Therese, for your coordination, and thank you, Pam, for your comments today. When Chief returns, I'll ask him to follow up. And if there's any interim communication, feel free to copy, send it to the chief and copy me, and we'll move this forward. So thank you.
Thank you all.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you, Siri.
Oh, it's working. All right, try to move on about this now. Next thing is EB, discussion draft financial statements 21-22.
Okay, a little background here, and I'll invite our remote panelist, John Cropper, with Cropper Accountancy. Just a quick background while John joins us here. Cropper Accountancy is the firm that the council selected to perform our financial or prepare our draft financial statements and audit. The audit is for the previous fiscal year that ended June 30th. It's June 30th. June 30th. 2022. we're now a solid 9 months away from that period of time. But the draft audit is included in your packet. And as we traditionally have, we like to provide the Finance Admin and Police Subcommittee opportunity to take an initial review of the audit before we forward it to council. We are currently planning to bring this forward at your next council meeting on April 12th. So with that said, I'll turn it over to our Finance Director, Susie, if you want to introduce our top speaker and where we're going to go.
Sure. John Cropper has been doing our financials. This is the third year now that he has been auditing our financials. And he is going to present this year's financials to you.
Okay,
We can hear you.
great. You can hear me, you can see me. Can you see my screen? I'm attempting to share PowerPoint. Great. So I'm here for the Finance Committee. And so any questions you have as we go through there, these are limited slides. I will say that I do understand that it's a little complicated. I mean, we talk about government being pretty simplistic in terms of how we handle finances. It's actually not. We've managed to get 2 balance sheets and 2 income statements essentially. As we go through this, we can talk about that. So I thought I'd throw up here what's page 1 is what the council pays my firm, Cropper Accountancy, to do. We do a lot of government. We're also a PCAOB firm, so that's part of the reason when we get past the January 15th timeline, we end up in a bunch of PCAOB audits. So we finished up on the end of March side here, but the audit results is what you want to hear on page 1. This is the unmodified audit opinion that we have issued. And there's other, they're not opinions, but there's other reports that you'll find in the back, one over internal control. If you had $750,000 of expenditures that were federal monies, there would be a single audit opinion in the back as well. These internal controls reports often are misunderstood. We don't audit the internal controls unless we need to rely on them. But as a byproduct of the audit, that report gets put in. There's also this SAS 114 letter. You should have that letter. Maybe you don't. The communication goes to whatever board or council is over the entity, and in this case, it's the council. So if you had one thing to read, it's like a 2-page letter, you would be looking and seeing a lot of sensitive estimates or important disclosures that you might find in the financial statements. So it kind of cuts through some of the information to make you focus. There is no management letter this year. You have a management letter that is required only when there's a material journal entry. And we have a couple client adjustments that you'll find at the end of the SAS 114 letter, but you will not find, I guess there is a pension one that we helped staff with, but other than that, those, the audit went very well. You have an experienced staff. So noteworthy items. So if you're looking at the statement of net position, so I told you had 2 balance sheets. One is done on a full accrual basis. It's got debt, it's got fixed assets, it's got your pension stuff. That's on page 15, full accrual, all the economic resources of the city. And then you've got the other one, which is done on a fund basis. It's a modified accrual, and we'll look at page 19 a little bit later. So just looking up here at this slide, you'll see on page 19, the assets are around. We're combining both columns, the governmental activities as well as the business type activities. You've got assets of around 119 million, liabilities around 16.5, and then the net position. Now, what is a net position? You might ask. You take the assets, subtract the liabilities, you get, the net position. It used to sometimes you would take the assets and then you'd add the liabilities with the fund balance and they would balance out. But there's a new approach that's probably a little bit easier for some if they understand what they're looking at, this net position. And so in the net position, you've got a couple categories, and it's summarized there on the screen, where you've got almost 94 million in invested assets, net of your related debt, legally restricted amounts, 7.2 million, and then you have this negative 2 million unrestricted. Now that will change when we go and look at your fund basis, but when you include your pension, which is around 9.5 million, and some long-term things that are going on in the city, it throws you into a negative unrestricted area. We'll talk a little bit more about that. You might have questions on that. And then so far as the fund basis, I'm only going to focus in on the general fund, where shows here you've got a little over almost 9 million in assets, 882 in liabilities, and a fund balance of almost 8 million. This number that I probably put too many color codes on here, but I think this green on this unassigned fund balance, which is the equivalent to the $2 million, the negative unrestricted in your statement of net position. In this fund basis statement, your balance sheet here, the unassigned fund balance of 3,032,000 is positive. It's green. It's if you took all your assets, got all your accounts receivable in, everything that cashed out, and paid off all your liabilities, that's kind of the checkbook balance of what you would be left with. I mean, we're not talking cash basis, but if you had all that come in, it's kind of one way of looking at it. So I'm maybe oversimplifying GAAP accounting here, but take it for what it's worth from the account. This I do think is helpful. I think a lot of times committees love to see this, where you've got a trend. You can see that you got unassigned on the top there, which is growing. It's growing quite a bit, that blue area. You've got assigned, committed, and this non-spendable. A couple of years ago, they came up with a GASB called GASB 54, and they really pushed the auditors to push the clients to categorize what you have in the equity section in the fund balance. This is the fund balance sheet that I'm talking about. I think it's page 19 in your financials. It's nice to know that you can segregate out committed, what the board wants to commit the revenues towards, right? Or what's assigned. You look at the special revenue funds are for a special revenue reason, so that they're kind of assigned or designated. The unassigned is, again, that number that is out there that if you had to have them for emergency purposes, you've kind of got them. You don't have to go out and float debt to get them.
The main increase there is from the ARPA funds that we took in. And we are holding them in assigned
That's gonna-
because they're for water and wastewater, but they're showing in the general fund, but we. So.
It's not really there.
It's kind of artificially
Yeah.
overinflated. So I just wanted to put that
But
out.
that's the 1.2 difference basically. is
Yeah.
better than that.
Yeah, because it was 1,035,000 was how much we received in the current funds.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Susie. So this is a very simplistic view of the government-wide, page 16. You know, I would say the financials, before I go into it, I would just say the financials are made up of 4 areas. The management discussion analysis, which is what goes in the front. All SEC kind of companies, they explain what's going on. We kind of grabbed that from them a couple of years ago with GASB 34. It's nice to read for a person that's not going to read the financials but wants to know what's going on. Not looking at the numbers, you can kind of hear from staff what they think is the most important stuff in that management discussion analysis. Then you've got the auditor opinion, then you've got the auditor financials, and then you've got the notes, all of which belong to the entity. The auditor does not take possession or ownership of your financial statements. We are independently auditing the financial statements. So we try and stay as independent as we can, although we did prepare your financials. You can see in green the revenue here on the government wide, the program revenue, some expenses, the change in net position, working its way down to that 99 million, and you've got the numbers in the prior year there. You can also go into the MD&A and get the MD&A is really great for comparing, contrasting year to year. Here in the general fund, same idea, the revenues, the expenses, the over under, just a little bit under. And then I think Susie was alluding to this transfer here when she was saying what she was saying there. This is, there's more detail when you look in the financials, but this transfer in to give you a change. That change in fund balance is essentially the equivalent of net income. You're adding that to the beginning fund balance, and then you're getting almost $8 million in the end. So I have some definitions in the back, but I pretty much will stop there. Ask if there's questions. I do have the financials available, and I can put those up on the screen if you want to discuss the pension footnote or RSI, required supplementary information, which is in the back, or whatever. I can do whatever you have on your minds. If nothing, that's okay too.
Thanks, John.
I was just gonna ask you, John, I know you stopped sharing screen, but I was gonna just prompt you on a few things on your slide deck.
Sure. Let me get it back up here.
And if you want to go ahead and move forward, next slide. Yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a look here. So we're on the same page, John, if you kind of move through this together with our mayor and vice mayor. So our council member Bagby, this shows our revenue was down by about a little less than 400,000, right?
Yes, yeah, a little less.
From the previous fiscal year.
And this is only the general fund, right?
Right.
Just to clarify, okay.
And then our expenditures were up by about 245,000.
Right. Let me do something here
So
that might help.
just add to the majority of the revenue decrease was the cannabis excise tax.
Okay.
I think that one was, I'm going off memory, but I believe it was like 250,000 or 275,000. So that was the majority, and we expected that, right, because we reduced it, and so, yeah.
And then on the expenditure side, my assumption would be that the biggest contributor to expenditure would be staff costs or wages. Is that accurate?
Yes, and we had more consultants as well.
So where we ended fiscal year 22 is we had a kind of a net deficit of roughly 300,000.
Oh,
Right, before you added in your transfers, right? And there is a footnote on transfers to, that you can see where the money's coming from and going to. Let's see if I can easily get
Yeah,
that.
so we had net transfers in, so the kind of the positive number I'm honing in on here is we had a change in our fund balance of 1.7 million. So when we look at the budget and the fund balance summary in particular, you'll see that at the start of fiscal year 22-23, so at the end of this fiscal year, there was a number placed there. That number was an estimate.
Mhm.
So what going forward, the beginning fund balance now, the 6,203,000 will be the new number for calculating, because now what we basically, once council adopts this, we have an audited number that will plug in. So the good news is we had a positive increase in our fund balance of 1,745,000, almost 746,000. Now, that's a good thing. What's important to be aware of that is that a significant portion of that is the ARPA money.
And it's not.
Yes.
So we're negative spending, but we got free money for one time, so it's still not a good way to be.
I think for that fiscal year, I have to go back and look, we actually forecast a larger deficit. If I recall, it was over 500,000. So we due to a combination of, obviously, we had lower revenue of really expending less. We closed that gap on some of our expenditures that helped our revenue. Our I guess would be our gross revenue over expenditures to a certain extent. But obviously we didn't close the gap, otherwise it'd be zero.
And I believe these expenses, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but these expenses also include OPEB, right?
This right here is the general fund. And so we're doing that on the other side, right? That's the government wide.
Okay, so
It reflects those balances. There's not only the net pension, there's this timing thing for deferred inflows and outflows, and then they hit the expense there outside. So far as what was being said by David about the net transfers, there's more detail in note 6 where it says kind of the ins and the outs of different funds. And then in the back, in the RSI, page 63, we have the comparison for the general fund. So you'd see some of these numbers tie in to that page 63. So I just give you those two things as additional information if you care to go there.
And John, just for reference again, you mentioned page 46, that's note 6. I see that.
Page, yes, note.
That's the interfund transfers, receivables and payables.
Yes.
And I see there the $2.2 million was
Came in. Yeah, there's and then the transfer out. So yeah, you've got your transfers in, your transfers out. What I've got up on the screen that was created by Katie, it's this will tie for sure to your financial statements. If I can go to page, yeah, if you go to page 21, you can see the transfers there as well.
Yeah, it's all rolled up, transfers in, transfers out.
So it helps you get an understanding of what the proprietary funds are doing, which is not a lot, but the non-majors, those do contribute quite a bit. And you got to get used to the schedule a little bit to kind of understand the ins and the outs and the way it's flowing. But there's additional information there on that page if you want to study it a little bit. And then, of course, the RSI in the back, that's a helpful required schedule. When the council does the budgets, then we do make sure that we put those in. It's a great control, right? The auditor doesn't look probably as much at the budgets as maybe the council does, though. I mean, we're focusing in on the accounts and testing, and we do look at it, but only to see that it's kind of what makes sense. So.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely. So when we, and I did mention, Susie, does everybody have the SAS 114 letter, or is that, no?
I don't have it at this meeting because I didn't have it in time to
Oh, okay. Yeah.
have it for the city council meeting.
And so I noticed that it said draft. The finance committee should know we've actually issued the financial statements at this point. They so if you've got a draft, there might have been a couple changes, but nothing.
Yeah, the final will be at the council meeting as well.
Okay.
Because I got all of that at the same time.
Okay. So at this point, your financials have been issued. And so anyhow, the audit went well. And I think that that's what you want to know, is that you've got competent personnel. I think Shannon's been around for a while working with Susie, and we're trying to come up with a schedule that would get these to you faster than March 31, but that's kind of where we're at for this year anyhow.
Any other questions?
Mayor, and Councilmember, is anything you'd like to see for the presentation when we bring this to council? Would you like us to ask John to modify the notes, for example, and have those on the?
Yeah, I'd like to have the slides ahead of time. That would have been helpful, because it was a nice summary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those will definitely be included in the packet, but if there's additional information on the slide deck you'd like, it sounds like maybe references to the notes.
Yeah, if you can just include the page numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he did that with some of it. You know, reference the page numbers.
So we did have the page numbers on the slides. I could go back there. I don't know that we're probably in more detail than we will be at the actual meeting. If that's I mean, we can always go into more detail, but typically that's not what we normally would do.
Mostly they just want to know that the books are being done correctly, that there's no major, and where we stand. So I think you did a good job with your presentation.
Yeah, I will ask that question about why we had the deficit with the answer that you gave. If you want to include it, great. I'd rather you it's one of us ask it,
Yeah,
because it needs to be made clear that we aren't going to have to readjust that again.
yes.
Mayor, when you say the deficit, are we talking about the government-wide $2 million? Is that?
No, I'm talking about the 298, basically, where we
Oh,
changed
okay,
this tax and it lowered our expectations. And so we need to make sure that we readjust back to a normal percentage to get that to a 0, or have realistic expectations for that going forward and lower our budget.
sure. And I will add that in government, it's always nice to have that add to the fund balance just a little bit. So you're feeling like you're strengthening it. So if you have some projects and you don't have to go out and get debt. But there are, depending on how the council wants to handle it, government is not necessarily having to add every year. Where you're a little short 1 year and a little over. I mean, depending on how the council wants to, of course, do their budget. That's really the key. And of course, that's why we put not only the budget on page 63 of the general fund, but the amended budget as well. So you can see what happened during the year.
And I'm not, I mean, that's a minimal amount in my opinion. It's
Yeah.
not
Right.
something I'm not concerned about. I just want it to be brought out in public and known so that we can adjust. I mean, that $300,000 in deficit for a year is minimal. And I think that's a great solid 0 budget to me. That's in the black in my opinion.
And you did add and transfer in for whatever the reasons were, the 1.7 million. So it actually is a pretty good year, adding to the bottom line there. So, all right.
Thank you.
Well, if there's nothing further, I will see you, I guess, in a couple weeks.
Yeah, John, yeah, actually, next week, and if you can make any final adjustments to your PowerPoint and get those back to Susie. You know, we publish on Thursday, so.
Okay, well, we'll work with Susie, David, and you know, if you know, she and I work together, we should easily be able to turn that around by Thursday. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it would be ideal to publish your presentation in the agenda packet that will.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people like to write on it or just, you know, yeah, I agree. You know, and Susie, you can give me input if the colors were too much. I mean, I get it. I just kind of play with it a little bit, you know. But it, you know, when it gets printed in the packet, it will not come out colorful probably. So
So it was easy to view.
Yeah.
Yeah, the colors were fine, John. Just, I like green and red.
sorry, I can't help myself. All right. Okay, well then we'll until I guess a week from now then.
Yeah, we'll see you on the 12th.
Sounds good.
Thank you, John.
All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
Anything else on that one? The reason Gus was calling me, I think they have the same problem in Fort Bragg right now. I don't know anything about it yet.
What's the problem?
The guy with the gun on campus.
Oh, no.
I don't know anything other than a kid texting saying, here's this, it's all home, they caught him, no one's dead. So they don't know if that was real, prank, anything yet. So it's not. At least it went in a positive way. That's what my phone is what I was doing. Okay, let's move on. F, I know it's called surveillance cameras, but that's not what they are. Citywide camera system we were talking about, David.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Chair. Including your packets of memo from Chief Ferguson. Chief has did some additional research in you know, since our last meeting. The town of Windsor also an item was brought to their council to purchase 5 safety license plate reader cameras. Based on the cost estimate, they were able to acquire or procure those 5 for $14,250, which comes with an annual operating cost of $12,500. I think talking to the chief, he's recommending a similar purchase if the subcommittee wants to recommend moving this forward. He identified 5 locations. I did want to correct the 2 bullets. He said South Cloverdale Boulevard at Teresa Drive and Ospey Road at Teresa Drive. And I think Teresa Drive is outside of the city limits. So I think the reference there should be the South Cloverdale Boulevard overcrossing or interchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the thought process there, this would cover the major entrances to the city. So the 2 at the south, First Street, Citrus Bear Drive, and then North Cloverdale Boulevard at Highway 128. So that would kind of align with the same approach that Windsor's taking, and we haven't obtained a quote yet, but we would expect that it would be in close cost to the quote that Windsor obtained. Now, whether they got any discounts because they went through the sheriff's office, I'm not sure, but I think it's fairly consistent
Depends
with.
what their data storage policy is.
Right.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
so.
And access to power.
Right.
Because I'm looking at this, like the North Florida Boulevard at 128, I don't know what we have there city wise. It might be something that we bring back towards quick stop area.
Yeah.
So we can lower floors, we have more power, so things.
Or
Yeah.
a toll or something like that.
I think about when that comes in, and that one's a $50,000 camera.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the cost seems pretty consistent with Healdsburg's. They had 11 cameras and it's just about twice, a little over twice the cost. So it seems like on a per camera basis is pretty consistent, just short of about $2,900 per camera.
What's crazy is these are the LPRs, which is, so this comes way down in price, and it's a good deal.
Yeah, yeah, and this is the box system.
Yeah.
It seems like these are the same system that Healdsburg, Windsor are going to be utilizing, and it seems like it makes sense to go with a similar type of process.
That's the one. Awesome.
So we're just seeking your direction if you want us to, I have to confirm, we didn't find this in the budget, so it would require a budget adjustment to bring this forward for council approval.
That sounds good.
And next is the bonding capacity for City Hall and police station.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So I'm working with Mr. Greg Isom, who has done incredible work in this field of determining bonding and financial capacity. He worked on the school bond. He's worked with a number of other cities in this neighborhood. I know he's working with Lakeport. He's worked with Healdsburg. I was hoping to have some information from him by the time this agenda was posted, but I know he's actively working on getting this information, and once I do, I'll get that agendized in the packet. I know he was kind of doing a deep dive, looking at opportunities for success. And I did share with him that this police station, we have a footprint for a city hall, and he did ask the question, what other types of interests we may have in financing, because ultimately to sell a bond to the community, you're going to need 2/3 support, and you're going to try to look at opportunities to garner that support through maybe additional options for a community to want to vote yes. Noting that we have a large retirement population. So there may be things that, really target Clover Springs to garner their support, noting that it's been challenging for public safety type financial bond approval.
What's this? First in California. Thank you. Moving on.
So council approved the police officer trainee position that is posted on our website. We're hoping we find a candidate that we can bring through the academy, but otherwise we are still recruiting for a police officer position. So we're doing both. Once we have a candidate, if we do for the academy, then we likely pull the job announcement for the police officer. But our goal is to get that fifth officer.
Engineering turnkey.
We've been, dedicating time, to, this project. Again, the major components include, street lighting, interior lighting, HVACs, new HVACs for all public facilities, a photovoltaic system at the wastewater treatment plant, and as well as a complete meter retrofit throughout the city. All those efforts are ongoing. We're spending time particularly on the PV system. It looks like there's some regulatory constraints in meeting our PV sizing, as we originally, what we were envisioning and doing was building a large enough PV system that we would use net metering throughout our system, to offset all of our meters.
Did we get our application in on time?
And that, well, that's the res VCT, and according to just about everybody we've talked to, all the res VCT credits are pretty much all allocated. So what we're back to is meeting the NEMS 3 deadline for NEMS 2 to maximize our credits. So we're working on sizing options. So I think we're going to go with this a little bit of a smaller size system at the wastewater treatment plant, and a small rooftop system at the water treatment plant.
Well, that's April 15th. This is the deadline.
Yes.
So
We know.
gotta get done.
So that's in the UV, and we're gonna be meeting with our UV staff on the water meter project, because there's a lot to do just on the administrative side to get that all set up in the utility billing system.
We'll meet the deadline. They've been tweaking a little bit, asking our opinions about it. I think we kind of come to a.
As long as the application is like mostly solid,
Yeah.
that's usually, it can be able to slide through.
Yeah.
But
We
yeah,
just had these last minute changes, so it's like everyone's aware of
I'm
it.
sure you're aware of the date. Coming up.
Next, Dave.
Right.
Okay, next, we just continue to track participation in the Bay Ren Water Upgrades Program. Nothing new to report. Customers continue to do outreach, and it's for customers who are interested in upgrading their or going to more efficient utilities. Seems like the most popular thing right now is toilet upgrades.
All right, Recology.
Recology, I am working with R3 Consulting Group on a scope of work that's in process. I was hoping to have that by now, but coordinating with both Recology and R3 on that scope, and I'll be bringing, as soon as I get it, I'll bring that forward.
The cannabis report.
And that's included in your packet. Susie, anything you want to offer about the cannabis report?
I think the only thing I would offer is that you can see what our average monthly is, and like it was at like 40 something, and now it's down to 10, which again, we expected it to be 1 quarter, almost. So I think we're still where we should be.
Is that something that we want to talk about bringing back to council yet? No, anything?
What do you think?
We should have about it and discuss it there, maybe for all.
Yeah.
I
That sounds good.
know it's going to be contentious again, so. Okay, the water rate revenue tracking worksheet.
Yeah, and then again, that's just for the committee's review. This is, again, our best attempt at being transparent with the water revenue data. I can report that we are bringing forward, well, let me step back. One of the things I think that's very valuable in this analysis or this data is it highlights the contribution of the surcharge to our water revenue. And if it's clear, if we had not collected that surcharge, we would have barely surpassed the revenue that we collected on a year-over-year basis, which, doesn't position us well to be able to afford those future capital improvements. So, I think it is was a critical revenue source to reflect the conservation efforts by the effort, which I think was, critically important in drought conditions. With that said, we also recognize that we had a great weather year, and we will be bringing forward a change in our water shortage emergency from what's currently a stage 3 to a stage 1, and there's no surcharge that comes with that. So that will effectively eliminate the surcharge or minimize it to 0 for now, and hopefully we remain in good water conditions.
Thank you. Veterans Hall generator.
That was just placed, this is a discussion item based on the announcement from Supervisor Board's office that the county is going to fund the addition of a generator. We don't have any more information at this point as to whether it's going to be a gas or diesel. We'll continue to have that conversation. And I know that the interest was in more on the lines of a natural gas type of generator, given the location and whether there can be a backup battery system. But again, this is just a standing item, and we'll, as we know more, we'll program.
And the AVA, I don't know why it's on here.
Yeah, that's again just a standing item. This is the Outside Guide Association that has requested an opportunity to speak to local elected officials regarding their interest in establishing a water district. No action at this point, and I know it's kind of a LAFCO. I think
Kind of in the hands of LAFCO. I mean, I'd be happy to just take it off for now.
I started checking to see how I was gonna talk to you about that. No, I was gonna
go ahead. Okay.
about the Veterans Hall generator. We don't need that.
Well, I'd just like to hear an update if we get some news from the county as to what their plans are.
How about the water upgrades dashboard? Need that on
We need to still get better than that.
or the PG&E turnkey program? Because we already approved and are moving.
Yeah.
forward.
we're already
Do we want to
starting.
agree?
If you're fine, we can.
I'm fully confident you'll make the deadline. We need to, so.
And then the cameras, I mean, well,
Yeah, well, we'll just hear it back from,
next it would go to the city, to council, right?
Yeah, unless you want to come back here, I think.
let's send it straight to council after we get the chief.
Any other cities, you don't need to. It's a long, this is getting longer.
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
Great, thank you. Moving on to G, future agenda items.
Let's see, item A, this may be something that either comes back to this subcommittee or in closed session under labor negotiations. This was a direction by council to look at compaction for senior staff, and we just need to do some homework and bring that back.
And AV infrastructure.
Likewise, just getting tracking development of programs to fund EV infrastructure. Nothing to report at this time to them.
That could go to planning, or that could go to planning or development if you don't want to handle that here. I don't see why.
I don't see why we would need that.
Yeah.
That
Okay,
would
so
be
move to
planning.
planning.
Yeah.
Got it. Great idea. Off our plate. And it's perfect for that. Any other future agenda items? Perfect. That's easy. Times of year 2:49. We'll be adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for everything.
No, it's a.
Mike, it's 2:49.
I just get the findings reports.
Oh my gosh.
I know, that's a big hurdle.
It is a big hurdle and yeah.